pretty tough to go to all those injuries to the line. And of course, you've already got a couple wide receivers out, and everybody's out there like that's pretty much my update. So I'll try to crank that out for you.
And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the pregame cheat sheet. I'm Darren Smith along with Steve Walls, and we are inside the Arrowhead Stadium press box where the Kansas City Chiefs will be taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. And really, the game is going to decide whether or not the Chiefs continue on in the hunt for the playoffs or if they get eliminated.
Yeah, man. If ever you needed to play for like your like your tomorrow depends on it. Today's the day.
So they're literally playing for their playoff lives. Is what,
Basically, win or go home.
and look, and as we talked about, look, we kind of joke about it. The team has to play at their very best, and they've been talking about, it's time, the playoff mentality. But if that is the case, the last 2 weeks have not worked out in their favor, Steve.
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of the reverse of last year. Everything that they were doing, winning all those close games last season and the season before that, seems like it's kind of come back to bite them. Maybe their luck has run out.
And one of the things that we've talked about is that all the teams, with the exception of, I guess, well, the Baltimore Ravens are behind them, but all the teams, with the exception of the Indianapolis Colts, all have tiebreakers ahead of the Chiefs. Like the Chiefs have lost to every team that matters in this conference that that they shouldn't be losing to, or that they shouldn't have lost to.
Yeah.
Maybe with the exception of Buffalo, because they always seem to lose to Buffalo, but everyone else, it's. I mean, when we look at where we are right now to where we were earlier in the season, could you imagine that we'd be in this predicament?
No, but sometimes I think they've been so good for so long, and they've dominated for so long. Sometimes I think it catches up with you. At some point, it's bound to happen, right? And I think this is just that year. When you look at just the number of games they played over the number of years that they've won, of course, we always talk about it's been a whole season with postseason, that they've played of extra games. So I mean, it's bound to happen, but I think, and what's one of the things that Patrick Mahomes kind of last thing that he said when he spoke this week was like, wouldn't it be an amazing story if we were able to get in the playoffs and then make a run?
It would be amazing. Right now, the team sits at 6-7. Steve, that's something
hmm
this late in the season. This is the worst that Patrick Mahomes has been in his career as Chiefs starting quarterback. 6-7, of course. We look at what the Chargers winning their game against the Philadelphia Eagles last week.
Mm.
Um,
Just barely.
but they still won.
Yeah, true,
It
true.
still counts in the standings.
Yeah, and it's funny though that you see these teams and how they play. The in game as far as the win didn't kind of equate to how uh, what people say, oh, like the Chargers are balling and they can't lose and all this stuff. It's like, well, the Eagles really beat themselves. If you think about the way that Jalen Hurts and that offense played, the Eagles defense played well enough to be able to win that game.
Yeah, no, they did. Well, we look at this matchup, Steve. What are some of the things that you noticed in this matchup that's going to be different from the first matchup in Brazil?
The offensive line.
Oh,
You look
yeah.
you look at the offensive line. Man, you have three guys that are out that make up that leading starting cast and guys who you felt like you were going to have throughout this season, and then you have a guy on that's playing on the offensive line that played his first NFL game last week. It was on the practice squad, hasn't really had many reps, and so looking at it, the totality of how he did last week. I mean, he did fairly well, and I think that the team kind of gave him some praise, despite the fact that they lost. But I feel like that's one of the biggest keys. I think what difference is between week one and now.
Xavier Words, of course, he was out after the third play. He'll be playing in today's game.
Mm.
They'll be without Trey McDuffie in today's game, along with Jawan
Yep.
Taylor, along with Trey Smith, as you mentioned, and along with even Josh Simmons. So, like you said, the offensive line is going to be totally different from what they face off. But how big is the loss of Trey McDuffie in today's game? Because this will be essentially one of the first games I think he's ever missed
Yeah.
for the Chiefs.
hmm he just has that we talk about the dog mentality, man. He doesn't have to say much, but his play, speaks for itself. And it's funny that it takes today. for him to be out. And so it's just like the next man up, man. We know that they have that mentality that the guys behind them should be, as well as starting now. We know that it's not that way because, of course, those starters get paid a lot more money than those backup guys and even the third string guys. So, but they're gonna have to make their money today.
Estepole, he's going to be starting in place of Wanye Morris, in place of course, Josh Simmons today. He played extremely well last week,
Yeah.
coming up the first time off the practice squad to play for the Chiefs last week against the Texans. What are you expecting from him this week? More of the same, or do you feel like, because, granted, Will Anderson is one thing, but
Yeah.
Khalil Mack is something else too.
Yeah. But Khalil Mack is not Will Anderson right now in his career.
He's
If that
still he's still Khalil Mack.
Yeah, no, no,
Okay,
no.
okay.
But however, I think Will Anderson has a little bit better motor right now, just because
Yeah, he's
well, because
younger.
yeah, he's younger,
Okay,
right? That's why. But
I
I
agree.
feel like you get those first game jitters out the way, and it's like now, all right, I'm here, So once you get those first game, jitters out the way, it's not anything that you haven't seen. 'Cause I mean, the Texans has the best defense in the league, right? To me,
Yeah, no, they do.
and I mean, they threw everything but the kitchen sink at this offense, so or at least at the offensive line. So I think the Chargers aren't going to do anything different. So he spent this week, I'm sure, watching tape. But one of the things that's kind of crazy to me is that Trey Smith practiced, a couple days
That is
this
most
week.
of the week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then he's not playing today. So I'm kind of concerned about that.
Chargers coming to today's game 9-4. Of course, the game will kick off at noon, and you can see it on your local CBS stations. Of course, it probably won't be the main game. I think they actually got the Browns and the Bears.
Mm.
It's going to be the main CBS game for the noon kickoff. But looking at this matchup, Steve, one of the things that interests me is we always look at certain matchups. This time around, look at Travis Kelce, Derwin James. I know they kind of been having thing going on the last 3-4 years or
Mhm.
whatever. What do you see in that matchup? And do you see a situation where you see Rasheed Rice, especially with this weather out here? It's cold. It's cold out
Oh
here.
man, man.
We will not be doing post game outside. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
But what do you see based on what we saw last week
Yeah.
with Kelsey and Rasheed Rice in today's game?
I think they're going to be targeted more than they were last week. I
Well,
think
Rasheed
because
was targeted 8 times.
yeah, well, I mean, here's
Only had
here's the
4
thing about
catches.
it. Right now, I feel like that's an outlier that game because just for Rishi, and the reason I say that, I mean, we've seen the Kelsey tip ball pass interception before,
Yeah,
but Rasheed, we haven't seen him play that bad. To me, I just from
that's fair.
looking at the first few
That's
years that
fair.
he's played, I haven't seen him play that bad. So I think Patrick and Andy, they're one of those. They're a couple guys that will go right back to you after you make a mistake, just to let you know that it's like, all right, we believe in you. Now, if you burn him again, that's a whole different story. But I feel like they're gonna go back to him.
So let's have this conversation because we look at where they are today. Andy Reid 6-7. This is one of the things I think we talked about on our shows this week, Steve, respectfully, is that this is the first time that we'll see a lot of situation before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, we've seen the team 2021 that went 3-4
Mm-hmm.
at that big loss in Tennessee before they went on their run, lost to Cincinnati at the end of the season, and lost to Cincinnati in the AFC Championship game. But outside of that small strand of adversity, small strife, we haven't really seen well this iteration of this Chiefs team uh, since the 2022 draft. I think bringing Trent and all those players in, they haven't been through this type of adversity before, where they've 7 losses, all these losses stringing along, and where they're on the outside looking in of the playoffs. I personally am waiting to see how they perform and how they stand, because we've yet to see them get, I think I would say they've been punched in the mouth, and we haven't really seen them fight back, more or less, because if they had, they would be, at least 5, 6, or 7 seed versus number 8 or 9 right now.
Yeah, and I want to ask you this about how they lost the Super Bowl. Do you think
Well,
that had? Do you think I'm talking with the Eagles? Do you think that had any carryover? Because remember when they lost to Tampa Bay, it was mainly
it was
the
the offensive
offensive
line,
line,
and they and
right?
they revamped
Revamped
that.
everything, yeah. But the Eagles just beat up on them as a collective.
So just going back to that game, because you and I sit next to each other, we're in the press box, whatever. We saw the defense stopped them on their opening drive,
Mhm.
and I can't remember if they either intercepted the pass or caused fumble or they had a turnover on downs. But when the Chiefs did not run at all on those first three downs,
Yeah,
that right there told me right then and there they're not winning.
yeah.
Like literally that opening drive because
I
you
think
did.
think Travis dropped the third down,
Yeah,
the third down.
he dropped
Yeah,
it down, but what I'm saying, I'm like, but the first and 10, it, the mentality of how I felt going into the game. To me, they were so entrenched on Mahomes being the MVP, Mahomes three-peating or the team three-peating, but Mahomes being the reason why that they neglected what got them there,
yeah,
which was essentially running the football and having more of a balance. And I get it, the offensive line, all that other stuff. But I think coming out of the game, you told me Andy at the combine said that they regretted not running the football, at least
mhm,
trying to have a little more balance for establishment because they didn't do that. And then
yeah,
by the time they did, it was already too late. They were already down like 24-3 or 24. And so I thought that they learned a lesson from there coming back, especially when you bring a lot of the same players back, that you're going to try to have a more balanced attack. But it seemed like coming into the season, it was more, you
more the
know,
same thing.
yeah, more the same thing. Explosive plays, throwing the ball
Yeah,
down the field, it was all Patrick and his numbers and stuff.
hmm
And now it's like you're in a dogfight and you don't know. And it seems like this time around they've been the bully for so long that they finally got hit in the mouth and they don't know how to react. So that's to me what it feels like. So to answer your question, no, they have not. They haven't done anything different that I've seen since the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the bounce back isn't there, and it was how they lost. I feel like that had a lot of carryover into this season.
Yeah,
I try to go back to that 2021 loss, and then you look at the wins, Super Bowl wins, and how they came back that following year. And not only that, but they've gotten by a lot with what they've had, right? And I think that's what they've been used to.
true,
And
true. But check it out. The thing about the Super Bowl Tampa Bay that we were at. And it's funny because the same happened in New Orleans. They got embarrassed on the national stage, but they got embarrassed so bad in Tennessee. I mean in Tampa because of what the offensive line and everybody saw Patrick Mahomes, that you hadn't choice but to address it in the
yeah, and
offseason. So
it was COVID.
it,
Everybody was at home too.
yeah,
So
I mean, and it was essentially a home game for Tampa Bay
hmm
in their stadium.
hmm
In New Orleans again, it was like okay,
it was a home game for the Eagles.
yeah, but also, but again, but because you never attempted to even try to run the football,
Yeah,
you would, to at least try to counterbalance things, that they got hit in the mouth, after that and didn't know how to react. It was like, bro, you're 15 or you're 18-1. Like, come on now,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
you fight and they,
They've done a lot of winning, man, and sometimes I think it takes the losses to figure out like, all right, it's time to take that next step. Because you remember they've been ahead of all these other teams for the past few years, and the other teams are just now catching up.
yeah,
And if they've caught up, it's going to take this team to take that next step to do something different. Because remember they brought Patrick Mahomes in, and there hadn't been a quarterback that has played like I mean, they're literally just drawing stuff up in the dirt and making it work on the fly.
yeah. The only thing I'll say is that they've been in a situation where they're 6-7, but
Hmm
they could easily be what is it 6-7? They could easily be
8-3.
they could easily be like 11-2.
Mm,
And you're just based off of because again, we look at it, they could have won last week's game. You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? I mean, the fourth down call that Andy did, I don't know, but some of the other games came down to execution, came down to drop passes here, or Patrick overthrowing,
yeah,
or turnover here and there. So I'm saying, so because of these one score games that they were damn near undefeated last year,
yeah,
saying in one score games where again it goes down to excuse because a lot of people are used to excuse or the talking point that we talked about them playing all these extra games in the playoffs. But again, if they catch a pass here or there,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
It goes different directions.
we're not having we're having this the conversation we're having now is can the Chiefs make it 4 Super Bowls in a row, a la Buffalo Bills or
And
whatever.
even if they win one more game, they beat Jacksonville. It's a totally different story.
That's yeah. Yep.
So I mean, it's always come down to
In
team.
Denver, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
just certain,
yeah.
just the way, just
And
things
people
have been
people
going.
can agree or disagree or whatever, but I still feel like a lot of those games they beat themselves is whether it been penalties or whether it just been just mistakes.
Agreed. Agreed. X factor for you in this game offensively for the Chiefs.
One, they've got to play clean football. Wide receivers got to catch the passes, but
I ain't
I,
saying your key. That's a
no,
you
no, no,
X
no, no,
factor.
no. I know. But like I've said, and I'm sticking to this, man. It's got to be Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's got to, even though guys aren't catching the football, and I think they rely a lot on him. Um, I, they're gonna go as he goes. If when he's rolling, I think this team rolls. So we've got to see the Mahomes that we've seen when he doesn't want to lose. And I get it. He's played that way a lot, but yeah, we've got to see Magic Mahomes come out today.
Well, this first one, I think this might be first in our history, but I'm gonna go with Patrick Mahomes as well. And really, because one, I don't have a choice. You used it 3 weeks in a row, so
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that was my thing. And I go with this, and I'm gonna just pull the camera back just a little bit, or pull the curtain back for our audience. You and I, we were when we walked into the locker room last week after the game after the loss to Texas. We saw, and it was late too, about 10:30, 10:45. But we saw how dejected Patrick looked. I
Yeah,
mean, he sat in his chair, head humped down, towel over it, like like he had been in a knockout drag out fight and gave it all he had.
yeah.
And essentially, we that's probably how he felt, and it looked like that way. But I'm like you, it's like you know that's how he looked in the locker room. But then the public persona when he got to the podium, still fighting and stuff like that. And so, to your point, I think that's what his teammates have to see. Now, and we don't normally talk about stuff going in the locker room, but I have to because they have to see the Patrick that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And look, and I do believe the weather's going to be a huge factor in this.
For Chargers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because they're they're not built. Their body has to acclimate to this weather
Mm-hmm.
while they live here. So
But granted, it's not totally bad. Like it's not Miami divisional game bad. It ain't that. It ain't that bad. I mean,
but it's cold because well
the sun's out.
and
When the sun's out, it helps a lot.
but talking to former players, they said when you're a team like that plays in a dome in California, you come here, your mind is thinking how long before this game ends before we can get back on the plane and get out. So they're going to be trying to get out as quickly as they can. So you know. Yeah, feel like they can lose a game. But but I just feel like to your point though, Patrick has to, even if he didn't believe it, especially because it's going to be tough with that offensive line 2 weeks in a row, how it is. But he's going to have to show that no matter what, he's going to do what it takes. I don't like if he's the leading rusher for the team though.
Hmm.
That he cannot be.
Yeah.
But I do think he is the X factor in
Okay.
today's game defensively for you.
I think, man. I've been going with Chris Jones a lot, man. I went with George Karloff this last week. Uh, but I mean, I've got to go with Chris Jones again. I mean, he's got to play. Like I talked to Chris on Friday, and just kind of pulling the curtain back again on the locker room after practice. And I went up to him. I was like, "Man, how you feeling?" And he was just like, "Man, I'm good, man. I'm playing." He's playing the music because he controls the aux in the locker room. And he was playing. He's like, "Man, I'm just trying to keep the mood right, bro. I'm just trying to keep the mood right." So that let me know there
Yeah.
that he's still in it. He's still trying to lead this team. He's like, "Yeah, I'm just keeping the mood right." So I'm going with Chris Jones today.
I'm going with the defensive backfield only because again,
Yeah, Trent. No,
I'm
Trent.
saying Trent being out, that's that big loss. And granted, a lot of it's going to fall on Jalen Watson to go man up on the receivers, but they do have some adequate receivers. And while I do feel like they're going to try to run the football as much as they can today, they will be in a situation where, of course, they'll have to pass.
They've got to stop Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen,
He
but
always
also
gets off.
yeah. So I mean, so for me, that's where it lies.
Yeah,
And then of course, at the end of the day, the other X factor, special teams, man.
yeah.
I mean, Bucker get it together, man. That's just, I mean,
I agree. Yeah.
Can't have. I mean, in this type of weather here, and I think either you, well, I think you probably went with the Chargers, but I think you talked about it where it could come down to special teams where it could come down. You had it 27, 24, something like that.
Yeah.
Where with the bucket kick, and I'm like, oh God, please don't. But
Mm.
but that's situation that we might find ourselves in. And of course, if you miss a kick early on, how does that affect the rest of the game? Because we've seen when he misses kicks early on, it has an adverse effect on the outcome of the game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm still thinking if I'm gonna get my score right now, it's 27-24 Chiefs. Um,
I think
yeah,
I got
they gotta win.
27-21. So, or yeah, I think I got 27-21,
They gotta win, man. They do. They've gotta win.
which is crazy because everything says that the Chiefs should lose today, but
Yeah.
it's based off of what they've been playing. But
Except,
now,
except Vegas.
Yep. Well, Vegas had them winning last week too,
5.5. Yeah.
and had them winning against Cowboys too.
Mm,
That's why they play the game.
okay.
Want to thank your sponsors, Mike?
Yeah, I want to thank my friends over at Dillard's on the Rosa. Thank them again for yesterday as we collected toys to support the Negro Leagues baseball museums. Cookies with Santa happening next Saturday. You still have the opportunity to register your kids, register your little ones if they want to have cookies with Santa down there at the Negro League, 18th and Vine area. Also, you can support Xavier Worthy's foundation tomorrow at the Worthy Ones Sip and Serve event. So find Sip and Serve on social media. But thank you to my friends over at Dillard's on the Rosa.
And of course, shout out to them because they got Steve looking like he's covering the Baltimore Ravens.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So shout out to them. Shout out also to Todd's Closers and Taylor Suits, keeping me stylish week in and week out. And also I want to thank Gates Barbecue, of course. They're located at 5 metro locations. So if you haven't already gotten your food to get ready for kickoff, you can go post game. I'm going to try to drag Steve with me after the game today so he can try some of these Bernie fries that they got going on. But you can join me over at 40 Highway after the game around 4 o'clock, 4:30 after we get through with the post game stuff. 'Cause I'm going by there to give me some good food and watch the second half of the game. So for Steve Walls and myself, make sure you join us for the Red Hour tomorrow night. Myself, Steve Walls, DJ Q, Sean Tyler, 6:30, 7:30 on your social media platforms. And of course, join us post game today. We'll bring you Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and anyone else at the podium. And then, of course, we'll do an abbreviated post game show after the press conference with myself and Steve Walls. So follow Steve Walls at Steve Walls KC. Follow me at Darren Smith NFL. I want to thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be back next week for the pregame cheat sheet. But again, join us tomorrow night for the Red Hour. We are out.